Good morning. This is your brother. Or should I say good afternoon? I seem to always get my days mixed up, the time of day mixed up. But good afternoon. This is your brother, student minister Alvin Muhammad here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, coming to you live from the Greenwood beat. Thank you all for tuning in today as we enter into another segment of the Trumpet on Greenwood. I want to thank you all for tuning in. It's a beautiful day. I pray that God directs my words, that we all may learn something to help us become better stewards of the community in which we live in, that we may learn to break down the walls that exist in our community so that we can help build up our people, our community, help build up one another to replicate the works of those who came before us on these historic grounds from which we are broadcasting for down here on Greenwood. So again, let me begin by saying that I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, and I further bear witness that Minister Louis Farrakhan is indeed, without doubt, a divine reminder in our midst. I greet you, listening audience, in the Arabic words of peace and paradise. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you again for tuning in. I am your brother, your friend, the mouth in the south here on Greenwood. And today's subject on the Trumpet on Greenwood is entitled, Ananias and Sapphira, the Oasis Food Mart Fiasco. Ananias and Sapphria, the Oasis Food Mart Fiasco. You know, I put a post out the other day, and I just want to reiterate that we have a lot of problems in our community, and we have a lot of preachers in our community. The problem with preaching in our community is that we don't address the problems that exist in our community. So our community continues to suffer. Our community is hurting. Our community is divided, yet we're preaching out in heaven and neglecting the hell or the hellish condition that our community in. But I am striving to speak on the hellish condition that our community is in, particularly with one another, so that we can work together to turn this hell of a condition into the heaven that we may all live in peace and harmony together. But in order to do that, we have to address the wrongs. We have to address the issues that are keeping our community divided. So today's subject is doing just that. We're dealing with an issue that is causing hurt and frustration in our community, that is causing division in our community, and ignoring it will not solve the problem. So today's subject again is Ananias and Sapphira, the Oasis Food Mart Fiasco. In the book of Acts, chapter 5, we have the story of Ananias and Sapphira, a couple who attempted to defraud the church and God. As the story goes, they sold a piece of land, and the money for the land was supposed to go to the church. But instead of giving the money to the church, they withheld a part of the money, then proceeded to lie to the apostles about the amount they received for the sale of the property. After being questioned about the sale of the property by the apostle Peter, Ananias fell dead at the feet of Peter after lying about the amount he sold the property for. 3 hours later, according to scripture, Ananias' wife, Sapphira, arrived not knowing what had taken place, and she was questioned by the apostles about the sale of the property. And she too lied, and she too fell dead at the apostles' feet. She was carried out and eventually buried right next to her husband. At that great time, great fear seized the church because they witnessed the power of God on the apostles as they healed many within the church. But not so today. Today, there is no fear in the church, mosque, etc. People and pastors do what they want with no checks and balances at all. The name Ananias means habitual liar. And unfortunately, religion is filled with pastoral Ananiases who lie and rob the religious community because they have absolutely no fear or respect of God. This brings us to a situation surrounding the co-owner of the Oasis food market here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and some property that was donated to the church called Victory Christian Center, who operate a community center in the hood called the Dream Center. There's an article that you can look up online by Non-Doc Media, dated August 30th, 2023, concerning this situation that I would encourage you to read, but let me first warn you, please have a cup of coffee with you because it is a long read. So you need to have a cup of coffee. You need to make sure everything you need to do is done because it's probably one of the longest articles that I've read in a long time, but it's a very informative and enlightening article and something that we all need to be made aware of. According to this article that was printed in a local newspaper called The Centennial, Pastor A.J. Johnson was functioning as executive director of the Dream Center located in North Tulsa. During his tenure as an executive director, he took a property that was donated to the church Victory Christian Center and quit claim deeded to his personal business. The house was supposed to be fixed up and donated to a family, a deserving family, as a dream home in the black community. The donor of the house was acting in accordance to Acts 4:32, which reads, "All the believers were in one heart and mind. No one claimed that any of their possessions was their own, but they shared everything they had." The person who donated the house was acting in accordance to this scriptural passage. But Pastor Johnson, who is a modern day Ananias, had other plans for the house in question and took steps to secure it for his personal benefit, according to the article. The house, which was supposed to be remodeled and given to a needful family, is a dream home. You hear about them giving away, St. Jude giving away a dream home, these multi-million-dollar homes every year. They raise millions, if not billions of dollars for these homes, and they give away. Well, not everybody operates. Most people who get those dream homes through St. Jude can't afford the taxes on them and end up selling them. But this was an opportunity for the little man, the poor man, to receive a dream home through Victory Christian Dream Center in the black community. But instead, Mr. Johnson deeded the house to himself, according to the article, so that he could take a mortgage out on it and obtain a $600,000 dream home for himself and his family away from the black community out in Bixby. Not only did he take the house that was donated to Victory Church and put it in his name, but instead of blessing a needing family in the black community with this donated house, Mr. Johnson chose to deed it to himself and rent it out to a black family instead. Malachi 3:8 asks, will a man rob God? You may ask, how has Mr. Johnson robbed God? Malachi 3:14 reads, he has said by his actions that it is futile to serve God. What do I gain by carrying out his requirements and going about like a poor person before the Lord Almighty? So as a community, as Malachi 3:15 goes on to read, now we call this arrogant brother blessed and say, certainly his evil doing has caused him to prosper among us. In other words, instead of us condemning the wrong, we praise the wrong. We look at what he has obtained and we want a $600,000 home. We want to be respected in the community. We want a good paying job like he has. So we overlook all the wrong because we look to get something. We honor those who have money because we want something from them. We look to ask them for a donation or whatever the case may be. We want some free food. We want a coupon. So because he has the power to give us something free, we overlook the wrong, as was done in this case. Among those who worked with Mr. Johnson, they say his favorite phrase was, "I'll ask for forgiveness, not permission." So without permission, Mr. Johnson deeded a donated home to himself so that he could enrich himself off another person's charitable contributions to the church and to God. After meeting with Victory Christian Center's Human Resources, Mrs. Johnson was dismissed as administrative pastor of Victory Christian and executive director of the Dream Center in, I believe, 2021, and is now a team member of Echo Alliance Group, which owns the Oasis fresh food market in North Tulsa. The whole fiasco brings to light the abuse and misuse of nonprofit organizations within the black community, and why one person states concerning this situation, "This is why nonprofits have a hard time getting support." This spirit of Ananias, this lying spirit, once again manifested itself in Mr. Johnson, who was seeking $30 million in federal American Rescue Plan funds to build 4 more stores on behalf of his partners, Echo Alliance Group. But that fell through once it was discovered that he lied about board members on his personal nonprofit foundation called Oasis Fresh Foundation, and that the real board members turned out to be nothing more than him and his wife. 1 Timothy 6:10 says, "For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after they have erred from faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows." It is obvious that Mr. Johnson has erred from faith by his actions at the Tulsa Dream Center, as well as his actions at Oasis Food Market, seeking $30 million in the deceptive way he attempted to do. And it was for this reason that I stated that we should boycott Oasis until Echo Alliance Groups takes the same actions that the Tulsa Dream Center took in removing Mr. Johnson from before us. A black family with the hopes of a dream home was put on the streets due to Mr. Johnson's actions at the Dream Center, and he needs to be held accountable for his selfish acts of greed. We always talking about holding someone accountable, but we don't want to hold those accountable who got a little money. We don't want to hold those accountable who we feel we can get something from. We don't want to hold those who are accountable who give us free food and some coupons that somebody else gave him. We don't want to hold those individuals accountable, but those who we don't know, those whom we don't like, or we want to hold them accountable for everything that they do. But we don't want to hold those accountable whom we love and admire and raise up as leaders before us. But at this point, I would like to make a comparative analysis of this situation that happened at Oasis with a similar situation that occurred a few years ago concerning the Greenwood Chamber of Commerce and the president, Freeman Culver, and a young black woman who lost her business on Greenwood, similar to how this young black woman lost her dream home under A.J. Johnson. In the case of the Greenwood Chamber, the catalyst for the cause of boycotting the Greenwood Chamber was the eviction of a business owned by a young black woman on Greenwood. Without investigation into the situation and based on hearsay and gossip, the community was called upon to boycott the Greenwood Chamber and ostracize the president of the chamber, Freeman Culver, for the eviction of this sister. I was personally part of a group of community leaders who met with Mr. Freeman almost 2 years prior to our sister's eviction that negotiated our sister's stay on Greenwood as she was facing eviction at that time. Against the recommendations of the Greenwood board, Mr. Freeman allowed our sisters to stay on Greenwood, but 2 years later, the situation had become so hostile between the tenant and the landlord that the Greenwood Chamber decided not to renew her lease. Accusations that the Greenwood Chamber unjustly forced our sister out of her location on Greenwood were spread about by disgruntled black leaders upset that they could not obtain control of the Greenwood chamber, as I indicated in last week's lecture titled The Black Attack on Greenwood. But after investigation into the accusations made by these so-called community leaders, it was determined in the courts, not by Brother Alvin, but in the courts, that our sister failed to uphold her monthly lease agreement. So the courts ruled in favor of the Greenwood chamber, and unfortunately, our sister was asked to vacate her space on historic Greenwood Boulevard. Fast forward to the fiasco at the Oasis food market and the co-owner, A.J. Johnson, and the eviction of our sister and our family from a home that was donated. I'm going to keep repeating that word, a home that was donated to Victory Church and was supposed to be given to a family as a dream home. Exactly the same community leaders who publicly stood against the Greenwood chamber, calling for a boycott, accusing the newly elected chamber president of being a crook, have not said a word about the actions of Mr. Johnson and the eviction of one of our sisters and our family from their supposedly dream home. These community leaders who called for a boycott of the Greenwood chamber and used their political positions and connections to withhold much needed federal funding from the Greenwood chamber are quiet as church mouses as this situation unfolds with Mr. Johnson. They remain quiet because they stood pictured with Mr. Johnson as their golden boy to head their beloved Oasis food market that they bamboozled the black community into believing we needed in order to get federal funding to the tune of $30 million. We have been bamboozled to believe that we live in a food desert, that Oasis Food Mart is the only grocery store in our community, even though a grocery store called Save-A-Lot is less than a mile away in the Springdale Shopping Center, a grocery store that has been, I'm 55, but that grocery store has been over there when I was in high school at Edison High School. My grandmother used to take us over there to go shopping, yet we have been made to believe that there's no other grocery store in our community. We have been bamboozled to believe Oasis Fresh Market is black owned, when in truth it is owned by a white man with a team working for him called the Echo Alliance Group, whom Mr. Johnson is a part of. And because we have been bamboozled to believe we may lose the only grocery store in North Tulsa, capitulating and compromising hypocritical black leadership either remain quiet or speak against boycotting the establishment that Mr. Johnson oversees. It's been said, Brother Alvin, you just stirring the pot. But if I don't stir the pot, then the little people at the bottom of the pot get burned like our sister Dorica Blue and her family did at the Dream Center. So you can do what you want to do, but I know that I won't step foot in Oasis Food Market until Echo Alliance Group takes the appropriate steps to remove this Ananias-minded brother from their staff, as Victory Church has done. We don't need this type of individual who will rob God and his people in positions of leadership in the black community. And let me close this presentation with some cold facts to wake us up to this nonprofit scam to get federal funds called a food desert, as exemplified by Oasis Food Market. Within the last 20 years, North Tulsa has had at one time at least 7 grocery stores operating within our community. We had Homeland on West Edison, Reese's and then Fiesta Mart at Pine and Peoria. We had Save-A-Lot, which is still in Springdale Shopping Center. We had a grocery store at 46 in Peoria that was destroyed by a tornado. We had a grocery store in the McLean Shopping Center, and the one that is still operating, Warehouse Market in Turley. Yet we have been made to believe that we live in a food desert. North Tulsa is not, nor was it ever, a food desert. So what caused these grocery stores like Homeland and Reese's to leave our community, and why is stores like Dollar General and Family Dollar doing so well in our community? A food desert is defined as a tract or area where the residents don't have access to healthy food choices. How would upwards to 7 full-blown grocery stores, 4 of them located on North Peoria, which runs through the heart of North Tulsa, how do we not have access to healthy food options? The truth of the matter is, far too many of us choose McDonald's, Sonic, Taco Bell, Wendy's, Church's Chicken, KFC, Popeyes, and a host of pork and soul food options, which is nothing more than slave food. Our problem is not having healthy food options. Our problem is choosing to eat healthy. It is our desire which drives the food market, and our desire with upwards to 7 grocery stores within our community has been cheap, processed, easily prepared foods, and Family Dollar and Dollar General has responded to our desires. So the solution is not in having Oasis food market. That's not the only solution. For what good is fresh vegetables when we throw pork in the pot to cook it with them? What good is those fresh vegetables? We putting swine up in there. We know we suffering from high blood pressure, sugar diabetes, and everything else. Yet we go get fresh vegetables and put the very thing that most doctors tell us to stay off of when we go get diagnosed with high blood pressure and sugar diabetes. They tell us stay off that pork, and yet we've put in pork and every other part of the pig in that fresh vegetables that we eat. What good is having fresh vegetables when we poison it with those things that kill us? That makes no sense. The solution for us is choosing to eat healthy. The solution is learning and reading How to Eat to Live from God, a book from God given to us through his messenger, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. So brothers and sisters, we have to wake up today. You know, they say that if you repeat a thing over and over again, you can make the people believe it. Repeatedly, we hear we live in a food desert. But I've just shown you that we were never in a food desert. We had an overabundance of grocery stores within the last 20 years. How do we go from overabundance to a food desert? What is it about us and our eating habits that cause all these grocery stores to leave our community? A business can't make money if we don't purchase the things that these full-blown grocery stores have. If we want cheap processed food, the things that Family Dollar want, then those large supermarkets will lose money in our community. So we have to look at our eating habits and see if we can find the reason as to why we don't have those supermarkets in our community anymore. The young generation today, they don't cook like grandma. Grandma would get up Sunday morning and she cook all morning to prepare a healthy meal for her family. But today, we use microwaves and air fryers. We don't have time to be cooking no full course meal. We want something quick. We want something fast because we are on a go people. So that is causing the response in the food industry. Our desire is causing a response in the food industry that is moving supermarkets out and giving us these quick processed food shops called Family Dollar and Dollar General. We got to ask ourselves, how is it that we can have a Family Dollar and a Dollar General within not a half mile, but less than a quarter mile of each other, and both of them making $3 million, making profits of $3 million per year? What is it about our eating and spending habits that allows these type of shops to operate and make and generate that type of money in our community? We have to be truthful with ourselves. We have to be awakened to the reality that we have been bamboozled to believe that we live in a food market. We have to awaken to the reality that we have been bamboozled to believe that we don't have access to healthy food options. And we have to realize that what is the problem is our choosing not to eat healthy. We like chicken McNuggets. We ain't got time to raise and slaughter chickens. We want processed beef. We want processed cheese. We want processed, everything processed. We don't have time to farm and produce those type of things anymore. So large supermarket chains are leaving the black community because our demand, our desire for the types of food do not coincide with the products that large chain supermarkets have. We have to be honest with ourselves. Oasis Food Market is not, we're not going to starve if we boycott Oasis Food Market, as many of us said or believe. We have to be awakened to the reality that we don't live in a food desert and that we are just making improper choices. So, brothers and sisters, I just want to make us aware of this situation in our community. I encourage you to go to non-document media and read this article. I've shared it on my timeline. You make a choice. I've chosen not to support this business. I've chosen to boycott. I won't spend $1 in this business. You read the article yourself. Get you a cup of coffee and read the article in its entirety. And then you make a decision as to what you're going to do. I'm just sharing with you what I'm going to do. I'm not going to spin there. We don't need that type of leadership. It's hard for black leadership as it is for us to have this selfish, greedy individual in our community as an example to our youth, robbing us of well-needed resources so that he can leave our community and live among white folk out in Bixby. We ought to be ashamed of ourselves for even supporting an individual like that. That's why it's hard for us to get anything done, because we trust those who come in our community and they rob us blind, using these type of schemes to enrich themselves. And as soon as they get money, they heading out of our community to go live with those who look nothing like us. We should have learned our lesson by now, but I guess we still got to get some knots upside our head. So again, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Trumpet on Greenwood. I look forward to hearing and seeing from you, seeing you next week. I greet you in the Arabic words of peace and paradise. Assalamu alaikum.